Opposed? Approving the minutes of the two meetings, August 1st and August 17th. We need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of August 1st and August 17th, 2022 meetings.
I'll second it.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the minutes for August 1st and August 17th, 2022 meetings. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. Move on to item 5, public input.
I have public input.
Okay.
Mr. Hayer,
Yes.
if you could please, do you have a copy in front of you or available to you, the oath that all aldermen are required to take when they are sworn in?
I don't have one in front of me. I probably could get one very quickly.
Would you?
Sure. Do you want a copy of it?
No, sir.
Oh. You have multiple copies? Or not?
I can make some.
Well, you don't, I just was asking if there were. Oh, so this is just an example of one that was
There.
already done.
All of the oaths.
Okay. I do have one.
Would you please read it for me?
Well, in this case, I'm going to eliminate the individual's name
Yes.
because it's,
Yes.
it says State of South Dakota, SS, County of Union. I blank do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of South Dakota, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of alderman in and for Ward blank, however long-term, for the City of Alcester, Union County, South Dakota, to which office I have been duly elected. Dated this blank, day of blank, and then signature, subscribed and sworn before me, the undersigned officer on this day, blank, day of blank, and then the notary public signature.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Nelson,
Yeah.
would you please generalize the Sixth Amendment of our Constitution?
I'd have to look it up, man. I think you have a right, what is it, right to counsel? I think it's
Thank you. That is enough. Ladies and gentlemen, a city employee was wrongfully terminated, had no representation, had no right to defend himself, and was railroaded by hearsay. And I, for one, having sat in one of these chairs, am completely and utterly appalled at the actions that were taken by this happening. Now, understandably, complaints come forward, that's what we dealt with, that's what happens. Typically, there would be some form of looking into this, of investigation, instead of merely jumping to conclusions that, oh, this one person and his mother are coming into us and saying this is what's going to happen, and if things aren't done, we will bring lawful action. Now, I'm a little confused because, as I said before, I have sat in one of these chairs and saw numerous complaints come in about varying employees. One in particular, several. Now, whether there was an investigation or not into any of these allegations, and that's what I'm going to call them, because as I see it, there has been no evidence, no audio, no text, no emails, no recordings of any kind proving that any of these allegations happened. And yet, the other employee that all of these allegations were brought forward about is still employed by the city. So how is it that, depending on who you are and what position you hold, that one person is entitled to the benefit of the doubt and the other is not?
I'm going to answer that question with a question. Who were you referring to that was terminated?
The gentleman that was employed by the community center
When did this happen?
just recently.
Like,
At the last council session. The
okay.
council voted on it at the end of executive session. It is marked.
So you're saying the next day he was terminated?
No, in all honesty, he was not officially terminated. He was terminated by the council. But he has yet to get an in-person termination after, what, 3 weeks?
That's my point entirely. The individual resigned before he was terminated.
He did not resign.
He absolutely did resign.
Is that in writing?
He walked in and handed over his keys and said, "I'm fired anyway, I'm leaving." And he walked out.
He didn't have his keys. Someone else
A
has.
key, one of the 2 keys he had.
So you had personal
And
contact.
he gave it over to one of our current employees. And he had the key. Where did he get the key if?
Let me ask you this, Mr. Mayor. Who sits at the top of the food chain who is supposed to handle the firing of individuals on a need-be basis?
I'm supposed to actually hand out a letter, and I was instructed to hand out that letter. And I was instructed to hand it out at 9:30. And before 9:30, he had already come in and returned his key and left. Before I had the opportunity to actually provide him with a letter. So he was not terminated. He chose to resign. And that's smart on his part, because now he can actually go to a prospective employer and answer the question, looking him dead in the eye, and say, "No, I was not terminated."
My question still stands though, is why are some employees provided a lot more benefit of the doubt than others?
They aren't.
Where is any proof that any of these things happen? Any of them?
In the individual's personnel file, which is entirely protected from
I understand
public.
this. Is there any kind of, I'm talking a text document between this individual and these other individuals, any recordings, any sound, any audio, any hard evidence that any of this happened other than the fact that another individual stood to benefit from this person no longer being employed?
Written,
If I may, Mr. Mayor, the specifics of what was provided to the council, whether in what form it's in, are at this point probably not public knowledge, and I don't think they should be, both for the benefit of the city, but more importantly, for the benefit of the individual who chose to resign.
I understand.
And I'm sorry, but we're not in a court. There's not a public right necessarily to see what's in his
I'm not
personnel
asking
file.
you- no, sir, I'm not asking to see it.
You're
I'm asking if
you're
it
asking
exists.
you're asking what it is and whether it exists, and that in and of itself isn't anything I think we need to share. One, two, it's not a requirement for what we need to have as far as proof if we choose to terminate someone or we try to terminate somebody and they choose to resign. I understand the point you're making. I get the point you're making about fairness, but some of those things cannot be shared in a way for that employee's benefit.
I'm in no way asking to see these documents. I'm in no way asking what they entail. I'm asking, is there anything other than strict hearsay
What he's
that
asking
should have
for.
condemned
I'm
this,
not asking you to explain what he's talking. I'm sure he can speak for
that
himself.
should have condemned this guy the way it did? Because people need to understand it. We're in a very small community, okay? And when allegations like this happen, the impact that it has on someone's professional life, someone's, and every aspect of their life, the impact is much greater than that of someone in a bigger area. And I see it all the time because of what I do. These young people think that I don't like this person, I don't want to work with them anymore, or I don't like that they told me to do this. All they know, because of the society that we now live in, that all they have to do is go, well, they did something inappropriate. And before there's any investigation, before there's any even second thought to, well, let's take a look at this and see what actually happened. They are just instantly terminated. And I have seen this happen. And I feel like you guys were fleeced by an 18-year-old and his California Karen of a mother. Because I have known this individual for 20 years, I have known his employers. And I am just absolutely in shock that this kid could come in here and make these allegations. And then have his mother sit over here and threaten you with legal retribution. I mean, that is, first of all, this kid is 18. He doesn't need his mom to come in and stand up for him.
There was more than one mom here.
That was done during public input, was it not?
Yeah.
And that was the meeting that I actually was not able to be here. But let me ask you a question. When you were on the council, were you ever involved in an executive session?
Several.
Okay, you know what that means.
I do.
And so if something did happen in executive session, would we be wrong to tell you what happened?
Yes.
Then
I'm
let's
not
suffice-
asking you to give me details. I'm still restating the same question of why.
There's written documentation. That's all I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
I understand your concern. I want you to know, from my perspective, Karens of any brand, California, New York, or otherwise, don't generally rattle me, and I don't let them rattle the council. I understand and I share your concerns. These days, you look at somebody the wrong way, they can say you're doing something inappropriate. So I get where your questions are coming from, and without going into details of what my role entailed in this instance, or details in general, I want you to know that if it's one guy and his mom coming in here saying something happened, we're probably not gonna, my advice is gonna be, well, we need to do some looking.
I guess that's my biggest concern was there any looking?
Yeah, this, again, without getting too much into detail with this individual's personnel file, we had more than a few instances, and I, correct me if I'm wrong, counsel, that there were more than a few times that the individual was asked to amend his conduct.
Sure.
And they're in paper.
And the concerns that you addressed were looked into as well, because there's two sides to every coin.
Sure.
So
Understood.
I get where you're coming from. I can't share much more beyond that, but it's important that you bring this to us, because actions need to be justified to the extent they can be.
Yes.
So I'm sorry I can't share
No, you're fine.
further on that, but
I guess my other question are health inspector scores for the clubhouse. Are those public knowledge?
it's a great question. I don't see why they wouldn't be.
Do we have them?
Yeah. We just had an inspection, they got a 94%.
94. Okay. There was there's an allegation of food being dropped on the floor, and I've been in the kitchen with this gentleman several times, and I know what his rules on cooking are, and I just questioned if there had been any sort of scores that would indicate any kind of such conduct would have ever occurred.
Oh, this was just a week ago.
Yes, this was after Clint left.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all I have. Thank you.
Is there any other public input?
So
Yes.
I do have a,
Hang on just a minute. Well, Gordon had raised his hand.
I think I was promised tonight a financial report of sorts about the community center. Is that on the agenda?
I don't know if it's actually on the agenda just specific to the community center, but the entire budget is on the agenda. I don't know if that's, what are you looking for? Are you looking for like a profit and
A
loss?
current financial report on the community center.
Kinda similar
that
to what
normally
you
is given
provided.
at this meeting.
Kind of what you provided for,
Yes, and I will get you a copy of
Mr.
that.
McKillop's. You can certainly receive that.
Okay, thank you.
We just had a request for that, I don't know, a week ago or less.
Good, good.
Hang on just 1 minute, Will.
I don't need this now. Okay.
Okay. Yes, you had some public input.
So I got a couple questions for the council regarding the same matter Mr. Johnson brought forth. One of them being that, from what it sounds like from what I've heard on things is that it sounds a lot of like allegations were made. I don't know if there were any more witnesses or anything, but I do know I've had to be a part of something like that in the past, and it's never a fun deal when you have to investigate that, and I understand that. But I do know that there are some things that weren't done that should have been done. For instance, on the executive session, my question is, why did the council not see it fit to call that employee into the executive session and actually sit down and talk with and discuss with him the seriousness nature of that? Why did the council choose to just terminate without giving him ample chance to defend himself against said allegations? And I believe that's where Mr. Johnson was heading towards some of his remarks, is that he was not given the opportunity to actually defend himself against allegations. And that's an important thing, even when I had to be a part of something for someone else at another place, that employee was brought in front of his bosses, whoever his direct supervisor was, and the next supervisor above that, and they sat down with them and they just, they discussed the issue at length, right there face to face. And that's why I'm kind of wondering why that didn't seem to happen. Because from my understanding, he was still working that night and went home and had no idea, of anything on it. And I believe if those allegations were there, he should have had a right to defend himself in that matter. So my question to the council is, why wasn't he given a right to defend himself in that matter?
Well, I guess I don't really know exactly how to answer that without violating executive session rules, privilege, whatever you want to call it. Aside from the fact that there was enough evidence that the people that were involved in the executive session conversation determined that this step was necessary, and it was, but somehow, evidently, and I have to assume did anybody on this council between the hours of 8:40 p.m. on August 17th and 8 a.m. on August 18th, 2022, talk to Mr. Nyreen and say, you're going to be terminated at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning? Is that a no?
I did not.
I did not.
I was
So
here.
then
I was
you're
not
the only
here.
four that would have been able to, because technically speaking, you're the only four that were privy to the executive session information. So obviously you did not violate the executive session. So someone else outside of the council had to provide that information to the individual.
As far as that he was terminated,
Yeah,
that was actually brought up publicly at the end of the meeting. It is on video.
I understand that. But
As
the
far
individual,
as to why the termination was only said at, for cause was the only reason. And
Correct.
even if that's the reason, what should be done is an exit interview, or at least sitting them down and discussing with it, before you even tell them, before you even hand the decision down that they're fired. You could probably have that in mind that you're fired, but I honestly believe he should have been called in that night and at least told about it and allowed to defend himself in the executive session, as it appears that the executive session was him highlighted in it.
up until the resignation, we were acting exactly the way we should act. So, is there any other information you'd like to bring forward? Yes. Chief?
Are we moving on?
I guess so.
Alrighty, not on the schedule, so I thought I'd just go in public input. First, I would like to thank Rhonda for all your years of service and help. So,
No problem.
so you're definitely a.
Did you get your water bill?
I should have. I better grab it.
You haven't seen it yet? No. Well, wait till you read your water bill.
No, I'm sure I left the sprinkler on a little bit too long last
No,
week.
no,
Oh, no,
no, that's not what I'm saying.
Oh, okay. But I appreciate everything. So you definitely helped out a lot through the years. Next, gave you guys stats. It's a pretty typical month, I would say. Nothing too extravagant. We did have an overdose. Other than that, nothing really too extravagant. Kind of had to relearn. I think it's the same school year as it is winter. People need to learn how to drive in the winter again, so they need to learn the school zone again. We had a few that were 30 to 40 miles an hour within the school zone. But I think that has kind of subsided and people have adjusted.
I've been pulled over on that one. Coming this way, coming back from the school, coming out of the school parking lot this way. In my terrible defense, there's nothing that says anything about a lower speed limit going as you leave the school.
You know, that's true.
You
The
probably
sign
should
is
know as
actually-
you go into the school, you should know what the speed limit is coming out, but
You did drive into it.
I didn't
you
get
know-
a ticket for it, so I'm not gonna complain too much on it.
You know, one thing that I kind of want to look into is maybe an end of school zone signs. I might speak to Lonnie about that. Just so that
I
there's
guess
a
it's
little,
like at the top of the hill as you
Yeah.
come down the hill there.
just at least as the signs start, maybe the other directions we can have, you know, an end of school zone, just to have some more,
Yep.
you know, notice to the public.
Another suggestion would be on those two entrances onto Sixth Street from the school parking lot, there could be a sign there that says, school zone, speed limit 15 miles an hour when children are present.
Could also do that as well.
If you do that, it covers it, because then he would have seen that sign, or he should have seen the sign.
He should have seen it when he drove.
I know, and he's not complaining vehemently, but he's right to a certain extent. I mean, you know, there's no sign.
Sorry, Kyle. But at least it shows we treat everybody equally. So, other than that, I don't have too much. I will say, I think on the new budget, I put in again for a new radio. I believe the state's planning on switching over in November to a new P25 capable radio. I guess it's a digital instead of an analog. So
I
I did.
did put in the budget, do you think it'll still be an 80-20 split?
It's gonna be a full coverage on our end.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, which I think the last one was, I think we purchased one this year as well in full amount, which I believe it was about 7,500 if that was correct, and we budgeted for 10.
Yep.
So, but that, I did call them just because I keep on hearing that the dates keep pushing out and out and out, and it may be a year, maybe 3 months, or maybe 6 months. So I just called them to advise possibly to get that on order.
Didn't I see on the budget documentation something about a grant though for radios?
That's where.
So what I wanted for that is that $10,000, the 7,500 would be towards that radio, but then that extra bit, I want to be able to possibly use that as a grant, which we are looking into for dash camera.
Oh,
So,
okay. I just saw the grant and I thought,
Yeah.
well, I thought it said something about radios, but
yep.
we're gonna have plenty of a discussion over the budget, so
Yep.
we'll get there.
And I got plenty of looking into for grants, so. Any questions, I guess, on stats or the fair went okay? It was very busy, I suppose, but I would say nothing major really happened, so.
Hmm. Okay, it does say underage purchase / possession / consumption, so I assume there wasn't a purchase that was made
No.
within the city.
It would just be consumption.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Is there any other public input?
I will share one comment I received today. This individual had a grandson's football game, so he could not come. But he is a landlord, and he was very upset that he received a water bill. The tenant moved out and left him with a water bill. And I explained to him that that is our policy. What our policy is, if a tenant leaves, we go back to the landlord. And he's not in favor of how the length of time before shut off is done. And he just wants you to know about that. So you may get a call at your house. He's very upset with us.
That may be a valid point, and maybe something we need to look into in the water department as to exactly how long we go. I mean, water bills are larger. All of a sudden, you get 2-3 months water bill, it's a pretty good chunk of change. And I think if I was a landlord, I wouldn't be all that happy about having that land in my lap either. But if after 2 months you haven't paid your water bill and your water's shut off, I think either you'll pay your water bill or you'll probably wish you had.
I think we had this discussion a year ago, didn't we? Very similar to water bills getting multiple months behind.
And
So-
It's possible.
We did.
the thing that's a little bit tricky, and I tried to explain this to the gentleman on the phone, is the fact that if it was a homeowner and a homeowner got late on a water bill, our procedure would be to shut it off after the account definitely gets more than we have for a deposit. And if I would have shut this water off, said landlord would have not been able to rent it to the next tenant because the water would have been shut off. And he would have had to have paid it anyway to get it turned on for the tenant to move in. So it's different when it's a landlord-renter situation than it is when it is a homeowner. When a homeowner, we definitely have recourse against that, because if they want water, they're gonna have to pay their bill. But with a tenant who just up and moves out, and we don't have any forwarding address, and we don't have information on them, our only recourse is to send it back to the landlord. And if we would shut it off, it's gonna stop that landlord from renting it out to someone else. Until the bill is
There's
paid.
also the shut-off fee too,
Yeah.
$50.
And wouldn't that be a reconnection issue?
We call it a shut-off fee, but it really is a reconnect fee.
Yeah, so
I think it just sucks for a landlord when the renters don't pay and they bail out on stuff, but that's part of the deal of owning stuff and renting it out to people, is you might get stiffed on that.
right, you also
And
might
I'm
get.
sure there's renters and tenant rights that you can't just go shut people's utilities off on them. Like, a landlord can't just kick a person out of their house right away. They have to go through quite a process to get the person out of theirs for not paying.
Landlords are left with properties that are demolished on the inside. And who pays that bill?
So you may get a phone call, some of you may get a phone call, and he was gonna try to call you, so.
Okay. Is there any other public input? If not, we're going to move on to item number 6, and I do see Tanya Miller here, and we have some information regarding the wastewater treatment facility plant upgrade. By the way, thank you very much for the emails and the responses, etc.
And they have all of your emails in their packet.
Oh, perfect, that's wonderful. And I want to be here to answer questions tonight. We had some comments from the city about rebidding the project. If the city wants to rebid, we put a potential schedule together. And so just want to know if that is something the city wants to move forward with. The one thing with the schedule, I noticed on the agenda when I saw it, that there was not a spot to approve an advertisement for bids. And so I don't know if that can be added to the agenda at this time, probably, I'm guessing it can't be. And so we'd have to revise the bid dates and go back probably 2 weeks.
That is what 6B is. Motion to approve. And
Following
then-
changes if needed. And
Okay.
evidently, we need to change the dates.
So, yeah,
Okay,
so at that point, we can put those items in there.
okay, all right. And so really, I think the question is, does the city want to rebid the project at this time? We've talked to some contractors, some are interested, but again, I can make no guarantees about, who will bid or how bids will come in.
Before we answer that question with probably just a one-word answer, everybody should look at that very first page of the emails, because there's information in red that answers the questions that those of us that got together to have a little discussion pertaining to some of the questions that we had regarding the new bidding process. Tanya answered them. And I think one of the most important questions that we had, at least that was the one that I rose with, was why don't we use a higher bid, or excuse me, a higher estimate amount, because we already received a bid and it was much higher. And she came back with a perfect answer. I think letter 2A answer in red is the perfect answer to that question. And it's enough for me to say, yeah, you're absolutely right. That makes perfect sense. So, in my opinion, the answer is yes, we do want it. Now, that's just my opinion. I don't get to even vote on this. But when you look at that information, I think you'll probably come to the same conclusion. I think we probably would. If we'd have had that information while we were sitting here talking, we probably would have come to the same conclusion. And we could have called you. We probably could have, but
I actually wasn't in on Thursday. I hopefully would answer the phone, but I can't guarantee.
Okay.
We did provide updated costs for rebidding, and that was part of the requirement for that as well, was the CCOG worked with the city to apply for the CDBG grants. And so we wanted to provide an updated cost showing that the funding clearly was insufficient for the project to help justify the need for the grants. But it is this cost that we would use at the time of bidding that we feel if you do get good bids, this is a more reasonable project cost right now in this climate.
and that's the one that's got the blue.
Yep, it's got the blue tables on it, it's a front and back sheet, and the total cost was $3,911,600.
And so our original estimate was what, 3.2?
3.2, and it came in at 4.9.
Right, so we just rounded and we said just a little over 3 million, and it came in at just under 5 million. So then why don't we ask, or, why don't we suggest that it's gonna be a $5 million project? And her answer is, I don't think we wanna do that because that's not a realistic number. But the number that they came up with, which is in between there, what was it, 3.9?
3.9 million.
Yeah, just under 4 million, which kind of shoots right in the middle there. They think that is a more logical number, and I agree. Now, I didn't really think of it that way at the time, but, so, not to circumvent your discussion, but I mean, I just want to cut to the chase. I'm really tired of having 9 and 9 and 10 and whatever meetings, so it'd be nice to move along.
And they also have in their packet the City of Eagle Butte, because that was like a scope letter.
Yep. And so that's what would be done if the city wants to, and this is where it's gonna get tough, because when I wrote this email initially, or the initial email to the city, that you have the red responses for, I didn't know when the CDBG funding came out. So the tough part, I emailed Harley and asked that it comes out in December. And so you likely may find out after you have to apply to the state. So you may end up kind of applying to the state for more funding, not knowing if you're gonna get CDBG, and then making a modification and talking to Andy Brules with the DA&R midway in December with an update. And then it also comes down to if you bid, you would need to award before the final funding package was awarded. It sounded like from Andy at the state, you would have the option though to redirect the collection system funding back into wastewater if you needed to. So that could be done to fund.
Now, Sam had a comfort level issue on that. He would like that in writing from Andy. Is that possible to get?
I mean, I'll ask. Doesn't hurt to ask. What I don't know is, I don't know if it's his decision or a board decision, and so if it's a board or a natural resource decision, he's likely not going to really put it in writing. But I can ask.
Okay.
So ultimately, there are probably just really a couple questions you need answered. Do we want to rebid? And are we willing to change the completion date to 12/31/2024? Those are probably the most pressing questions right now.
Correct. And then if you want any other changes to bidding documents.
So again, I don't want to stop you from discussion, but I don't think we need to beat a dead horse. We've gone through this whole process.
I think our whole plan was to rebid this thing and try to give it a longer completion date to hopefully give some people a little more time to think about this project. So I think that we're on the right track on that.
So if this whole project, like, that's down right here, and we get the bid back, and we decide, oh man, this is still really high, is there any part, and maybe we've talked about it before, of this that you could wait? Or it kind of all goes together?
A lot of it goes together. Now, what we did talk about before is when we were over, we had identified about $125,000.
Right.
We could take it. So we could take it a little bit.
A little bit.
And, you know, kind of whittle a little bit down that way. Otherwise, you're taking away.
It's kind of screws it all up.
Well, it's just that there's a couple big components. And
I'm sorry.
No.
I just saw smoke go up there and I'm just wondering what's,
yeah, I would say.
okay, I'm sorry.
What's
I
on
apologize.
fire?
No. As soon as I saw it, I thought, my gosh, that's smoke. It's vapor.
Oh, gotcha. So there's some that can be cut. At that point, if more needs to be cut, that's where you'd be looking at, like, taking the whole disinfection system improvements out.
It'd
And
be
if
a
you
big,
remember,
yeah.
it'd be a big cut, and if you've walked in that building, that's where it gets really hard to try to decide what big chunk to take out.
And it's all in not good shape, so.
Yeah.
Well, that's the deal right there. It's 20X years old and
Yeah,
Chlorine is really hard on stuff.
It's so
yeah,
hard on
that's
stuff.
terrible in there. It's not even safe to me.
It's in bad condition.
Yeah.
so I don't know if you have any other questions you'd like to ask her or whether you would like to provide any more information that we're not necessarily already privy to. If you do look at that spreadsheet that has the blue banner at the top, notice the use of the word banner. There's page 1 of 2 and page 2 of 2. The bottom line, page 2 of 2 is $3,911,600, which is, like I said, just slightly under $4 million, which kind of shoots right in the middle of where we originally thought it was going to be and where the bid came back. When I looked at the numbers, I mean, I got to tell you, when I look at the cost of a door, and the door is,
Item 18.
oops, no, that was the overhead door. I was looking at.
Doors and windows, 22.
Yeah, it is expensive, and part of it is in that kind of environment, you have to go to an aluminum door and aluminum window because aluminum won't corrode, and they are very expensive.
Yeah, no, that was 5 doors though. This was only 2 doors and it was, oh, there it is. Clarifier building. What kind of doors cost $2,250 a piece?
That's a aluminum, like, commercial grade door right
Okay,
now.
so I
That's
figured that it had to be
Yeah.
something that was high test, but,
Yeah.
and that's an expensive door.
It-
And so again, Darla, yeah, I think that was a legitimate question. Is there things that we could cut back on? Sure, we could put in an $800 door, but then 2 years from now, we'd put in another one. 2 years later, we'd put in another one. Well, now we're up to $2,500 a door, so.
Yeah. If you put any metal doors in, they corrode. And if you go with like a standard residential door, it doesn't fit in those openings because they're commercial. And it is, to make council feel better, it's an entirely new, like, it's the frame and the door and, you know.
Like, how is the, like, the commercial, the contracting world looking like as far as supplying? Because I know that was one of the big issues, that they weren't even sure if they could get supplies within the first year. So is that,
I would say it hasn't gotten worse.
that's good.
So that's the good news. Like, I haven't heard, and electrical equipment, I'm not hearing that that's getting better. I'm still hearing that that sometimes is 6 months to a year for certain electrical components. The one thing that I've seen a huge improvement since last spring is like PVC pipe. In January and February, we're hearing PVC pipe was like 8 months out. And now it's like 2 to 3. So that's come around. So I would say it is not a worse bidding climate than it was in June. It's just, I always worry about right now inflation and just how contractors are gonna react to that, and then can they find subs to do the work? Like with that seating price that was received last time of 98,000, they couldn't find a seating sub. Or they got one seating sub and that was the price he gave us to put it in. So, that's one of the concern now. But hopefully with 2 construction seasons, 2 full construction seasons, that will help.
So, a couple questions. Do we want to have it rebid? Question 2, what about December 31st, 2024? I mean, we're just moving the date, right? So,
I think if we wait another year, it's not gonna change a whole lot. I mean, the demand is out there for this.
could be
kind of
even
work.
worse. I mean, it's hard to say.
Yeah.
I guess, I would say we should try it. Try to rebid it. That's my opinion.
If we get one bid and it comes in at 16 million or 6 million or what, I mean, we go out with 4 and they come back with 6, we know somebody's
Then I'm gonna go to
Playing
school
with
and learn
them.
how to build this stuff.
exactly, yeah. Yeah, when-
Figure
we're
it out in
going
the
to
next
start
couple
a new
years, guys.
business. Well, okay, first of all, you can see that there's a rebid discussion. We've had some discussion, I'm not saying we're done, but letter B says motion to approve following changes. The changes would have to reflect the completion date of 12/31/24. Twelve 31/2024. Unless you guys see some glaring error or whatever and you want another change.
And then the other item is to approve the advertising of putting it out to bid.
And I did bring copies of that with, if you want me to pass that out.
Sure.
So we'll call that letter D maybe?
I think you need that all in one motion.
Oh, it could have, be added to letter B then, okay. Those changes, yeah. And that's advertising for the bid.
Correct.
Okay, so just so you're aware, if someone makes a motion, they would have to move to approve the following changes for the bidding of the, or for the process, the entire process for the wastewater treatment upgrade, to include a completion date of 12/31/2024 and approve advertising for bids.
I will make a motion to approve following changes to the wastewater treatment facility improvement plan, changing completion date of 12/31/2024, and to advertise the opening for bids.
I'll second it.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the wastewater treatment plan and a change to the completion date of said wastewater treatment plan to 12/31/2024, and approve the opening of advertising for bids. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You also can see that there's some CDBG grant funding application information in your packets. It's not attached to that.
No, it's separate. Give you next.
Oh yeah, but I pulled it out, so now it's not next. Okay, well, you can see it's resolution 2022-04. And if you can find that in your packet, like me, you can see it is a resolution that deals with the Community Development Block Grant Application Program, or program application.
So for Kyle, who was not here the first time around, we did apply for this the first time, and CDBG said, we're not saying no, we're just saying file again when you're closer to digging. So
Okay.
that's what this is.
So this is a motion to be able to file for this funding.
It's a
Right.
motion to approve the resolution.
Everybody understand what that means?
Yep.
Same thing we did before, except it's just a later date. That would need a motion, second, and so on.
So I'll make a motion to, for the resolution number 2022-04-CB, the CDBG project funding.
I'll second it.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve resolution number 2022-04 CDBG funding, project funding. Is there any discussion? Not? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Is there anything else you'd like to discuss with us?
So,
Now I feel horrible about making you come here all the way and having you sit through all of our discussion and
Been to many council meetings, you've no control sometimes over that kind of thing. So the only question, that public hearing in September on the 19th. I'll just coordinate with you and then Harley to see if she's coming or how's that, like, if one of us will need to be here for
Oh,
that. if
okay.
Who it should be to best answer questions.
and our public hearing is actually going to be at our library, because our September 19th meeting is at the library.
Okay, good to know.
and that's
So-
at the school.
Yes, it's on 6th Street, just a block.
I'll find it.
Okay.
Thank
Right
you.
across the street from the community center.
Thank you very much.
Good to see you guys.
Okay, well, we'll move on to item 7. You'll see in your packet this picture right here. We were approached by FCS concerning some problems with some storm sewer that leaves, I'm going to say, primarily you would say Iowa Street, probably Broad Street, and I don't think Union, but maybe even Union. We're not sure. We could probably find that all out if we do decide to actually go ahead with any of this and probably have some type of video inspection, camera inspection. These storm sewers are, they're 36 inches in diameter. They're huge, or bigger. And I can visualize somebody with a screen and a little remote control car driving through the storm sewer. Now, that's just the way I think it would work best, because you couldn't run a snake up and down this because they're so big around. The snake would get caught on the corrugated steel and bend up, and it'd just be balled up. It would never go. There's got to be some other method of doing that. And I know I've seen that before, where they do run those little remote control cars with a camera on it. Now, we've talked about that as a possibility, but you'll see there are 3 circles on that picture. And those are sinkholes, and I'm telling you, the one that's all the way, if you got it oriented like this, up is north. And that one that's all the way to the north, I mean, you could drive a large motorcycle right into that thing without a problem. It's a big hole. Now, there are a couple of different things to be considered here. That particular hole is actually on railroad property. But the infrastructure underneath the dirt is the city's property. And you can see over time, it just shot out water out of this area and eventually wore away the entire foundation of all the cement and everything, and it all caved in, and there's just a big mess there. And I mean, it's dangerous, first of all, but second of all, the water doesn't want to necessarily move the way it should because it pools there. To make matters worse, you'll see the other 2 circles. Those are also smaller versions of the same thing, and they're kind of in a, I don't know, I'd almost call it a grassy ditch. It's not really so much a ditch anymore, but it's maybe a little lower than the surrounding area, just slightly. Those 2 areas, I was told, if we get one of those 3-inch rains, and God willing we will, or sometime we will again in the future, but if we get one of those big rains and the water is coming down there fast, it almost looks like, he said, it almost looks like a volcano, a geyser, shooting up out of those holes down there. So the water's not going the way it should go, and therefore we need to do some inspecting probably, and some repair of at least 3 areas, possibly more. One of the things that we were offered by FCS is that they considered sharing cost. I don't know what that means. I don't even know what the cost is. But I can tell you, after looking at what happened at the wastewater treatment facility, I can imagine that it's going to be many, many thousands of dollars. I think there needs to be a large cement structure built over that north area, and it needs to then be reinforced concrete so that after you layer enough gravel over the top, it's basically something that a loaded semi could drive over. They really probably shouldn't be driving over it because it is on the railroad property. That's something that should be noted. But if somebody did drive over it, we probably want to ensure that it's capable of withstanding that.
Well, I guess I'd be in favor of, just my opinion here is, I'd help out with a shared expense on fixing the one up by the railroad tracks, with the railroad being okay with it. And, it was that way 22 years ago when Bill Boyer bought it, but there was a big grate over that sinkhole. And, but I guess the other 2, I'm not in favor of helping out with, just for the fact that it's county property, and I think that could be a whole load of continuous problems for the fact that how it was buried and how deep it is, and continued to have loaded trucks on it. I think it could be an ongoing problem, because, I mean, from Clark's mailbox where that line is going all the way down to the creek, in those two circle, you know, the holes are circled, that used to be a ditch 12 foot deep. And there was never no culverts in there at all. And so that dugout, when Bill Boyer bought it, that was a big ditch, couldn't cross it, the scale house was not there. And in order to get out with semis, he had to fill all that in. Well, he talked to the county, because it was on county's property, and it was a shared expense with the county, and they said that if you do all the work, we'll supply the material. And so, I guess that's just my thought. I mean, we can't take care of all the water that's coming out. I mean, we would ask Sioux Falls to come on down in here and help all the water issues that we were getting from them, you know.
Big Sioux River, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, they gotta fix the entire Big Sioux River.
That's right. So, I
Somebody
mean-
up in North Dakota does, actually.
Just my opinion.
Well, and that's a valid point.
Because, I mean, that culvert, you look at it, it's not buried very deep, and you go across it with a 90 to 105, 110,000 pound rig, you're asking for more of it to collapse. And you can see it's broke, you know, when I looked down in there.
Yeah,
I mean,
parts of the actual culvert are bent. I mean,
Correct.
you can see.
and the bottom of the culvert's completely busted out like that, so.
You can't tell me when they were messing around down there with all these elevator bins, they didn't disrupt some of that around there.
That's certainly possible too.
I mean, they're pretty close to that where that great big bin is.
Correct. And they load out semis just on that
Yep,
east
so
side
it's
of that.
heavy all the
And then they
time.
they go right
Yep.
across it and they leave, so. And when Bill, and I talked to Bill about this here the other day for about 20 minutes, and he knows this, I mean, he knows what's going on. And when he sold it to the elevator, the FCS, these problems were there then.
Just not this, to this
Not
extent.
new.
Yeah.
So I mean, I would be, I guess, one up by the tracks, I think we'd get a
So
bid
why
on
do
it.
they want us to pay for it if it's on county?
Their argument is it's city water coming down there and the city is responsible for storm sewers.
So Bill also mentioned 15 years ago, the big culvert going around that curve had a big sinkhole in the road, and that culvert had blew out and collapsed. The steel culvert that we seen when we, met with FCS. So Bill hit up the county about it and said, we'll just shut down the road. We'll condemn it, shut it down. Bill said, no, we need it for the semis to leave, Well, long story short, they said, if you patch it, we'll fix it. That's 15 years ago. Bill came in with an excavator, dug out the road, laid a big piece of steel over the big hole on the culvert, backfilled it, still there. I mean, it's like that to this day. So he says, it's very hard to get the county to spend any money.
I'd like to know a little bit more about the history before we, Roger, I'd be real interested in talking with you about the details.
I think it'd be best to have Bill Boyer meet us down there,
That's a good idea.
because, I mean, he knows us like back in the
And have the elevator prison,
Yeah.
because they tried to finagle.
They both were there. There were two representatives there. Dale and Lucas and I were there, and then the GM from FCS and Corey from FCS were there as well. And we had a good conversation. I mean, there was no animosity, there was no anger, there was nothing. It was just information. And I flat out told them, well, first of all, nothing can be done without council approval. Second of all, we need more information. So we do have some more, but I gotta tell you, in my opinion, absolutely nothing should be done without some kind of visual inspection. And I don't know how much that's gonna cost, but I'm sure it's not gonna be free. But I would think that FCS would be willing to help pay for those costs too. And Sam, I agree with you. I think we do need more information, but it really does no good to really even inspect this if, okay, so we got a hole here. What if 10 feet away from that hole, there's a major catastrophe about ready to happen.
But if they would have never buried these culverts, and just say there's something restricting, so it's putting more pressure, on the inlet outlet up where we got that blowout. Well, in that case, just say if they would have left that ditch open, there would have been no obstruction for a restriction. Well, then who would have said, the water would have got out of there a lot quicker. Now we got blowouts, it's restricting,
Because there used to
making
be
it
a
worse.
creek all the way
All the way
along
up to the
that.
mailbox.
Yep, all the way along
So
there.
we don't know what
Always
that
had
looks
water.
like either.
Yeah.
Does everybody know what he means by the mailbox? There's actually a little kind of a dark dot in the middle between the purple line that goes down the Iowa Street and that black line. I think that's the mailbox, way up
Yes.
there north by where that semi's about to turn to head toward the scale.
So that's originally where all the city water is dumped. And then it was home free to the ditch, down to the creek.
To the creek.
Yep. And so the county decided to pitch in on this because they wanted to use, Bill and the county decided that, the fairgrounds would benefit from more parking area. So that's the only reason they pitched in on it.
Is there a culvert under all this?
There is
There is.
multiple ones hooked together.
And that's the problem. They've either come unhooked from each other or they've
Collapsed.
collapsed. And so then when a lot of water comes rushing down there, it becomes a geyser where it can get away. Were you there when the fire trucks went there and ran the water through it?
I was not.
Okay. Dale was there. I think he got video, but I haven't seen it.
One thing I think that you might want to do sometime, 5 minutes before you come to a council meeting when it's still light enough, just drive down there and look at that
Yeah.
big hole. Because I'm telling you, I was shocked. I parked not too far south of that, and as I was walking up to it, I thought, holy cow,
And you're
how
saying-
long has this been here?
You're saying the big hole is by that semi.
By that
that's in the
semi that's
process of
turned, yeah, all the way to the north. Yep,
And that's on railroad land?
correct.
There used to be a railroad out. It used to sit kind of kitty corner right next to it, and they would load the rail cars right in that area. So when Bill
really-
Boyer bought it
yeah.
22 years ago, there was a big grate over top of it. And whatever happened to the grate, I don't know.
I'm sure it broke.
Yeah, but that being said, even if we do have it built 24 inches thick, I still don't think they need to be driving over it or around it. I
Yeah.
mean, Corey did mention they can make the corner without going on the railroad's property.
Well, and we even talked about, once this is done, in order to preserve it, putting those, concrete pillars with like yellow paint all over them, one on each side, and one on the east side, the west side, north side, and south side of that area. Obviously not right through the culvert, but you see what I mean, so that they can obviously see, don't drive here.
But don't we have to somehow even talk to the county? This isn't.
Well, without getting too far into it, I need to understand how the drainage works and who put what where. And to be frank with you, I gotta brush up on drainage law. I mean, there's ways that water, if it's going down the natural flow or the flow that has been going for a long time, if it goes naturally from my field to yours and it floods you out, that's not my fault. But certain times, I can't triple the water that's going into the creek on your field. I gotta look at it, Darla.
I think it's
just 'cause
kind
I'm
of
not-
complicated.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
because I'm not comfortable with it. And then-
Because there's 3 things that we're supposed to fix and none of them are already.
Well, yeah, and then, I don't, my curiosity was piqued because Lucas was talking about, they covered up this creek, I guess, and I just don't know, I need to know more about it. Because it's clearly gonna affect where water that does come from up the hill goes, so. Yeah. Just need to know more about it.
Nothing shows. One of the things that I had asked was whether or not we had any maps that showed the sanitary sewer not sanitary, storm sewer. And
This is our sanitary sewer, and then this is water, these are the only maps that I have.
so we don't even have anything that shows where they are. And that's the other reason why I said we may need to have this visually inspected in one manner or another. I think you're right, Sam. I think obviously they would probably like to have this done tomorrow. It's not gonna happen tomorrow. It's gonna require some investigating.
I'll get it looked at as soon as I can, and if they need to talk with me directly about it, I'm certainly willing to do so. We're still talking with their attorney on that, those
Fairground.
unclaimed strips of land that go all the way around, and that's getting closer to being done. So, yeah, figure out if we can figure out, see what we can do to come up with a solution.
So in essence, the answer to letter B, 7B, is we will not do any motion tonight. It's good we have the discussion so far. Keep it in mind. I mean, if somebody, I would suggest that all of you maybe just take a drive down Iowa, park off to the side, don't get in the way of those semis. It'd be unfortunate for you if you did. So park on the grass somewhere where they don't drive and just walk out there and take a look. Be careful, because I'm telling you, that one hole, you fall in it, you're gonna wish you hadn't. So we will abandon number 7 and we will move on to 8A, which is executive session, and it says personnel.
I'll make a motion to go into an executive session pursuant to SDCL 12521 personnel. Is that right?
Is this correct? Cindy, was that you that seconded?
Yes.
Motion's been made and seconded to enter into executive session pursuant to SDCL 1-25-2-1 personnel, which is actually, yeah, 1, sorry. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are in executive session at 7:12 p.m.
I mean, other than the people that were,
Okay,
great.
We don't have to feel ashamed about that because the county commissioners have a couple 15-minute intermissions during their day-long meetings. We are out of executive session at 8:12 p.m., 1 hour exactly. And we will move on to what now is item 8B, legal updates, and we've got a fairground update from Mr. Nelson.
On the fairground, I was informed by email on August 26th, I believe, that Fred Prater can no longer serve as the appraiser for the county and the city on the fairgrounds property due to some concerns and issues he had with Union County. Mr. Miller's informed me that he's found a commercial appraiser in Sioux Falls that can do the appraisal for $5,000. My understanding is the commission's already voted to approve appraising without naming a specific entity to hire. So I believe your current approval would allow us to go in half and half with the county with the new appraiser they've selected or located to do it for $5,000. And Pat's gonna double check that for me, so in the event that we do need to do it, we can have a motion at the next session of the council. Property update for 307 Iowa. I spoke with Mr. Fillings this today. He took photographs of that property last week to kind of compare to where the property was at this same time last year. He's going to put together a list of deficiencies per the property maintenance code, and then we will do a letter to the property owner, notice and order. Mr. Fillings also said that he was going to request in that letter, which I'll help him write, to be allowed to inspect the property because it doesn't appear that anything has been done to take care of the interior of that property. So once I have the photos from Mr. Fillings, we'll get that letter drafted and then to Pat for sending out. That's everything that I have for you folks at this time, unless there's any questions for me. Okay.
I don't know if at this time we should at least discuss the garage on Ofsted.
Sure, yeah.
Ofsted property. It was determined that the garage was in pretty poor shape. The individual that was interested in purchasing it has decided against purchasing it. We were going to go ahead with the appraisal by 3 individuals, and after all was said and done, it was determined that the facility is unsafe to allow much human interaction. I guess that's the most tactful way I can put it. So that being said, we've decided that we're just going to destroy this structure.
So it's still scheduled, correct? Just hasn't happened?
Right, well, yeah.
I didn't drive by it today, so
No,
I
I
don't know.
did, it's not yet.
Okay.
Oh.
I do know that the gas line was the most recent holdup, and that is done. So now it's just whenever Scotty can put us on the list.
And I was assured that that shouldn't take long by somebody else. I don't know.
I know he did our buildings, and they went down pretty fast.
Pretty quick.
One
Yeah.
day, they were gone
Yeah.
and buried.
I think when it happens, it's gonna happen
Yeah.
quite quickly. So that's another nuisance property, but. Mr. Nelson, do you feel good about the rest of the meeting? I mean, we've got some stuff we're gonna talk about, but can anybody think of anything in there that we really need legal representative for? Speak now.
I didn't see anything else, but as I said earlier, if you need to call me, I'm around, so give me a jingle and we'll talk through whatever you've got going on. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So what, it's 8:17 p.m.? Thanks, Sam.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for letting me out of class early.
Sure. Okay, you'll notice number 9 is mayor presentation, and it's going to be really quick. Here it is. You got it. I added names to different committees because having Alderman 2B or whatever is unacceptable. Keeping in mind the fact that 3 people cannot meet without making a quorum, but now you at least have 3 names, so 2 of the 3 should be able to meet. But if you only had 2 names and something that said Alderman 1A, well, if one of you couldn't meet, it couldn't happen. So now you've got 3 names to draw from. Just at least it gives you the ability to do your jobs as committees. So item 10, finance office updates.
So currently it's hard for us to regulate the utility because there's only one meter for both electric and gas, and it does the whole school, this side as well as the old school. And so once a year, Jamie Shemp and I review the utilities, and we come up with an amount that we feel is fair for what this half is taking versus the existing school. And our portion, split with the industrial board, is $2,616.61. We do not pay any rent for this room, so this is essentially what we would pay for rent, as well as the grounds maintenance that we do. So that's one of the things, is just asking permission to pay that bill.
And you can see the amount. We would need a motion, second, and et cetera.
Is that a monthly, yearly?
That's an
Once a-
annual.
Annual, okay.
I'll make a motion to approve that AHS warrant of $2,616.61 to cover the utilities.
I second that motion.
And you realize where it's coming from? See the letters?
General fund, yeah, from the general fund.
Okay, motion's been made to approve the AHS warrant for $2,616.61 for utilities coming from the general fund. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? How about August warrants?
I'll make a motion to approve August warrant.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the August warrants. Is there any discussion? Not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. And now we go on to item 10B, budget presentation.
Okay, so there's gonna be several parts to this, and I will go over it as efficiently as I can. The first part is the 5-year SIP. And it's a piece that looks like this, and the SIP is our capital improvement plan. So the first part of the budget process for me is I meet with each of the employees in their respective departments, and I ask, what are your needs, what are your long-term needs, and just roughly give me some ideas on what do you think those values are, and then they're put into the SIP. And I did present this with the budget committee, and together we kind of fine-tuned it, and so these numbers that you see in here are the numbers that flow through to the budget. So, and you can see them for each of their respective departments. So, do you have any questions on any of those? Maybe one area of question you might have is under park and pool. I did indicate that I'd like to get some new playground equipment. I got a phone call earlier this summer that said one of the baby seats had broken on one of the infant swings, and so I ordered some new ones, and that got me looking at the equipment a little bit closer. And then I was talking with Mr. Reed, and he said, you know, when the school comes down, he said it might be kind of a nice place to have a little park on this side of Highway 11, so the littles don't have to go across. And he's the one that told me a little zip line is only like $15,000, and I'm like, that is doable. So I'm not exactly sure what will happen when that building does come down, but I just put it in the budget that it would be kind of enjoyable to have a new piece of equipment, wherever it ends up. If it ends up in the city park, great. If it ends up over here, that's great too. So.
The fence at the horseshoe pit, one of the things that the people that do play horseshoe had requested is some kind of backboard behind the stake,
spindle.
the stake, because when a horseshoe hits just wrong, it can jump up and hit whoever's sitting on the benches. And I know that there are some there, but some of them are pretty sad. And I mentioned this quite a long time ago. I don't know how much that fence really will cost, or if that's due, it says 2024, but I think it's something we should at least consider doing for them, because they do. I mean, I know one individual that's going to the state tournament this coming weekend, so.
Okay.
And they use it.
All right.
I was kind of intrigued when I saw that zip line thing. I thought, that's kind of interesting.
And I did provide examples, the budget committee got to see, I mean, it's similar to the one that Hayward has on their playground, and I know that one gets used a lot, so. With respect to sewer, I really didn't know exactly what was gonna happen with that. I didn't know if the bids would be acceptable or anything like that, so basically I took that 3.9 million and I just split it in two. That part of it would be in 2023 and the other part will be in 2024.
The 2023 more concrete full hookup campsites, would those be basically upgrading the non-full hookup concrete campsites to those type of campsites?
It was the suggestion that we continue on in the park, making our way towards the pool.
I see.
And the reason for that is I have a sewer line that goes right down the center, so it'd be really easy to connect. So it's
Understood.
really just a little bit of plumbing and some concrete.
Wondering.
So, any other comments or questions on the projects for the future years?
What did you end up doing on the pool? I know we talked about the liner issue.
I don't have any input on that right now. I have it scheduled for 2024. That way it'll give us 2023 to do our investigation.
The liner issue you're referring to, is that, I mean, you look at those outlets where the water comes out and it looks like the liner has actually been wrinkled or buckled. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
It's got a leak, isn't it?
Yeah, and then we also had it ripped.
We had a rip,
Yeah.
a bigger rip than normal this last year, but we also had 3 skunks in there. So I don't know if the skunks precipitated the rip. I don't know, but we did have MC in our pool come down and repair the rip. So it's similar to the water bed. I mean, you patch it.
Well, I think down the road, we're gonna have to look at a new pool.
We are.
I mean, the little pool is kind of rough looking.
Well, when you look at that, didn't you have like 100 and some thousand, 100 some thousand, 100 some thousand for
I do.
a number of years?
Yes,
And I would assume that that's paying for a new pool or
right. Or investigating ways to get it, yeah.
modified.
They said Akron's getting a new one. I don't know, they didn't have it this year, but I don't know if we'll have it next year. It still looks like a dirt pile.
What? I can't remember how many,
Canton's been working for 2 years on theirs, so it's gonna be a process.
I can't remember how many $1 million Sioux Falls is putting in, but I thought
3 new pools.
$4 million or something like that.
I thought it was 25 million. on
Well,
that.
maybe it was.
Because a pool like Beersford's is between 2 and 3 million. And I really like Beersford's pool. It would be awesome if we could get something
Nice.
similar to that.
It's not huge.
No.
It's just,
It's highly functional. It's not indoors. That was Lucas's request.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. but, don't think
Especially
it's-
right across the street from your house.
Yeah, it'd be okay.
Be an income a year
1, 2,
round.
3, 4,
have guards year round, or lack thereof. So. Any other comments or questions on the SIP? So the next part of the budget process is to tackle the biggest expense that the city has, which is paying the staff. And at the previous meeting, the council said look at it as a 4%, 5%, or 6% increase. And so I started with the 6%. And the first time I put the 6% in for all the employees and really focused on the general fund side of it, I was 56,000 short. So I knew that even looking through the line items again, I wasn't able to find enough cuts to pay for that. So I dropped it down to a 5%, and that's the budget you have in front of you. Now what that means for you is I built the budget with a 5% increase for the staff. Come January, you can do 3%, 4%, or 5%, just knowing that it is built in at 5. So even though you might change your mind, that's how I built the budget.
So even though that last column says budget figures 6%, you actually used 5.
I did use 5, yes. But that last column just shows you what the amounts would be at 6%, but when I built the budget, I used 5%.
Oh, I see. So this really is the 6% number, but.
That is the 6% number, but I used 5.
Okay, I see. Good answer.
And just because I used it doesn't mean that's your decision, but that's what I base my budget on. There's 2 other things. I'd like you to look at this little organizational chart here. Dale was gracious enough to let us know that he plans on retiring from the city August 1st of 2024. And it's always concerned me about when he retires because wastewater operators, their salary is significantly more than what we are paying now. And years ago, I talked to Lonnie and I said, Lonnie, do you want to move into wastewater? And he was emphatically no. I do not. And now that it's actually closer, Lonnie has made the decision that he'd like to see us revamp our public works department, and he would like to spend 2023 as his year for training under Dale and learning and the filing of the reports. He has been approved by the state of South Dakota to approve and sign off on the quarter filings and the monthly filings that Dale does. And then in 2024, that would be solely his responsibility, and then Dale would slip back into streets for those remaining 8 months in 2024. So for right now, given the staff that we have, this is what our projected flow chart would look like. Lonnie, as Public Works Superintendent, would be responsible for the landfill, the street, the cemetery, and parks. And we would have staff in each one of those positions, that whether they were full-time or part-time seasonal. So I built in a little bit bigger wage for Lonnie because he will be assuming some more responsibility in 2023. And then he'll be solely responsible for it in 2024. So when you're looking at that, you will see that change.
And even though it doesn't state it under that Lonnie Johnson Public Works Superintendent, that's also wastewater responsible.
Correct. Sorry, I did not put that in.
So that's something to be aware of. He's doing more than just being the Public Works Director or Superintendent. So.
And he is finishing his classes, all his certification. So, any questions on that flow chart? The next example, this is something that I'm just throwing out there as a possible option. I was speaking with Jerry Bloom a while ago, and I know other communities do this where the city hall office works extended hours and then a shortened shift, possibly on a Friday. And so I just posed this to the budget committee. Option one, what if we worked a Monday through Friday, 7 to 5, and then, or sorry, Monday through Thursday, and then on Friday we would do 7 to 11, which is what a lot of communities do, where everything closes early on Fridays. And then the second one is, what if we did, Abigail and I did an alternating work week, where, and that's where I just gave you the example of August, maybe a Monday through Thursday. If that's my short week, I would work a 6:30 to 5, and then I would be off Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And then Abigail would work a Tuesday through Friday. And then the following week, she would work a Monday through Thursday and have extended time off. I have been practicing this last week, coming back from vacation, just seeing what it's like to come in at 6:30, and it is heaven. I really do enjoy it, and I enjoy it because I am able to get a lot of work done. When I was talking to Jerry Bloom about this and El Point doing this, they did have people in the community that appreciated the office being open before 7 o'clock, because if they had some city business, they could maybe swing by and pay their bill or do whatever they needed to do before they went to work.
Sure.
So, I'm just throwing it out there, see what you guys think. Obviously, and Abigail is in favor of it, she's a morning person as well. Miss Wanda was not a morning person. So, I'm just throwing it out there. So, it's just something I'd like for you guys to consider, and you can let me know your thoughts.
Did you, I don't think you emailed that.
I did not.
Can you email that to everybody?
Certainly.
The reason I say that, I mean, I'll take this home, and it's possible that this will end up in any number of places, and I may never see it again.
Okay.
But if it's in my email,
Okay.
I will see it again.
Alrighty. Okay, so now I'll get into the meat of the budget. And I'll try not to bore you to death. Okay, so page 1 and 2 is basically an overview of the whole budget. General fund items, as well as all the enterprise items. And so page 1 is all the income items. And then page 2 is all the expense items.
Can I stop you just for a moment?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I believe this was before I did the modification of the committees, but who actually met as the budget committee?
Lucas. Kyle.
Kyle,
Look.
myself.
Okay, so you guys did this before Linda was gone?
Yes, we met August 9th.
Okay, thank you. That helps. All right, I appreciate it.
Okay, so this is just a big overview of absolutely everything. Then, page 3 is just a breakdown of water. So it's what I feel we will have for our water receipts and our water expenses. And for 2023, the salary in water is Abigail. And enterprise funds have to, and income expense has to match. So that's why you'll see that it's a perfect match. I know we had said we wanted to do the water meter readers in 2022, but it just hasn't been something that has materialized. So I really want to put effort forth on that in 2023. So that's why you'll see that 119,000 in there for that. Any questions on water. With respect to wastewater, I again have half of the sewer plant in there on wastewater, and I have it as an income item because we do have our bond, so as we do major expenses, we'll have draws coming in on that, and then I do have it as an equal outgoing expense because at this point, I don't know what those numbers are gonna be, so that's my best guesstimate there. Also for, at this point, the salary expense for wastewater will be 100% of Dale, and it's overtime hours for Lonnie. But I did make a notation that in 2024, 100% of Lonnie's salary will go to wastewater and Dale will go to street.
So you're figuring about $3,000 of overtime for Lonnie?
Correct.
Okay.
And that's really only when Dale goes on vacation or if they have a little drama. So Lonnie very rarely, right now, spends any time in wastewater.
That's about to change.
The other thing about wastewater, which you'll see, it is an item on there, the state got back to me. We will, if we move forward with the project, we are about $2.55 short on where they want our wastewater rates to be for 5,000 gallons. And so I am proposing that we change that surcharge from $10 to $15. And so that's one of the resolutions that you will see in there.
So a $5 increase.
Correct. I know the budget committee said they didn't want to, put any increases on anybody, and I totally can appreciate that. But this is a requirement from the state. And we can put that in effective in just January 23rd. Solid waste. I did share with the budget committee that we are very fortunate of the agreement that we have set up with LP
Gil.
Gil, thank you.
Yeah.
We signed a 10-year agreement with them, and our rate is locked in for those 10 years. And I don't know what has happened with landfills, but right now our rate is $27.50 a ton, which is ridiculously reasonable because right now communities are paying over $50 a ton. So I did suggest to the committee that we look at possibly preparing for this jump, because I think we have about 4 or 5 years left on our current rate, and that we start maybe doing a rate increase with our $6 a month that we charge right now, and maybe up that a little bit, and then we sock that money away. But the budget committee said they'd rather not do it this year because of all this uncertainty and the inflation and where people are being hit really hard on all these other expenses. So nothing is changed with garbage in 2023.
But it is not a bad idea to at least consider starting to put a little bit away in prep for what's to come.
I think we'll address it again next year and see where we feel about 2024. But I do think we do need to do something. I don't know what our landfill rate will be, because it's on all, the gentleman that we dealt with, Mr. Gill, is no longer with them, and it's the next generation of Gills that we'll be working with.
So when does Fisher's contract run out? Because we talked about maybe doing that before he runs out, because then we'll have to open up that for rebidding.
Yeah.
And then, of course,
He's
that can come
next
back.
year.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Mhm. So, and I usually never have anybody else apply. We just don't have any haulers in this area that are willing to go down to Nebraska, where he is. So,
I had a question on that, and that's just probably how much it costs, but how come the city charges for garbage and we pay for garbage?
The city is the roll-offs.
That twice a year that we have
Oh,
the
that's what's
roll-offs
that
in
part of
town.
it. Okay.
It also helps fund the landfill, how we pay for Mitch's salary.
Okay,
And then that $6 also helps pay for the tipping fees. And the tipping fees is what the tonnage that I pay LP Gill for getting our garbage.
okay. So I can answer that.
Yep.
Okay, I've been asked that, they feel like they're getting it twice.
Yeah, the $6, and really just tell them it's to operate our own landfill.
Okay.
Because we don't charge for citizens to go out there and dump their leaves or their concrete or their grass clippings. I mean, that's the $6 a month.
Okay.
And the other thing is those roll-offs.
And they're
It's
very
not-
expensive.
It's not cheap to dump those roll-offs.
Right.
Right.
Those are heavy, full. I mean, and they
So-
fill up every other day.
I
practically.
know.
The
You know?
first day, they
First
filled up
time.
right away,
I know,
last time.
People have radar when those things come to town.
yeah.
Very
Nice.
short walk from my house.
It's kind of nice that we've got the cameras at the police
Yes.
department, because you can actually see those roll-offs, and you can see the individual plates on some of the vehicles as they pull up there, and so, yeah, well,
Pages 6 and 7 is the golf course. And I use that term to mean the whole community center, both golf and community center. All of those items now are lumped under golf course. I looked at our averages, what we have done the last 8 months, 9 months, and that's a breakdown. And then I applied it as if it's an annual basis.
was it beneficial to you to have the information that Mr. McKellips asked for? I mean, did that give you a really good snapshot of where
I look at
things
that
are?
every
Well,
month.
you do anyway, so,
Mhm.
yeah,
I do.
yeah.
So, now, I will tell you, and you'll see it on the expense side, I did make an assumption. And that assumption is that we would have 2 full-time kitchen staff and 2 people that would be the co-managers. And I provided the wages there of the full-time people. And so when you look at the salaries, that number is composed of 2 chunks. It's composed of all of the part-time people that we have up there, as well as all of the full-time staff that we would have. And the reason I need to separate that full-time staff out is because that's the part that's based for retirement.
If we can go back to page 6, credit card fees collected, that's
Mhm.
towards the bottom there. Is that, so that's with the golf course, we, credit card fees, and then we're paying the 3% or whatever on that? That's what that is?
Nope, that's actually the 6.5% that we collect. So our point of sale system, we charge the customers, when you come out to eat there,
Yeah.
your ticket has food, some beverage, and then your charged sales tax.
Mhm.
We collect that, but it's a flow-through because then I pay it to the state.
Okay.
But you do see that as income, but then you'll see it on the expense side that it goes out.
Okay.
So even though it says credit card fees, it's really state tax.
It has nothing to do with credit card fees.
It has, it's the,
Whether you pay cash or you pay, however you pay your ticket up there, some sales tax
Sales
is
tax.
collected.
But
But then I funnel it through to the state.
what about processing fees for credit cards?
My credit card, machine money is, let me see.
under, no, that is
Yeah, that's our old system where it said credit card machine on the very bottom line. That is broken out on every report, what our credit card fees are. I'm trying to see, It's under, supplies POS. Oh, no, not that, sorry. That's what we paid to use have the full program. I have a feeling it is lumped into supplies under Clubhouse. But that, it's about 2.5% per swipe.
I know this is an option. I know, in a recent place I was at, they saw what they paid for credit cards over a year, and they just implemented a thing that all tickets, they're gonna add a 4% gratuity. If you run through credit card, the customer pays the credit card fee. That way we're not stuck with paying the credit card fee for them to run a credit card. There was a little bit of hesitation at first to start. People were like, oh, you're charging me this, and after about a week and a half, nobody cared. So it's a convenience fee that everybody's used to paying, and it's something that we shouldn't have to foot the bill for as a business to allow them to be able to use the convenience. Everybody that uses a credit card know that it costs money to run that card, so I think that's something to look into.
I know there are a lot of places that charge 3,
Yep.
because that's pretty standard,
Yep.
3%. And if we're at-
Union County charges that too. If you go down and pay your taxes or you pay your vehicle license or anything like that, they charge a convenience fee. And I do charge it if people want to run a card here.
So I think that's something to look into for down there, because there's hopefully gonna be a lot of cards run there.
Oh,
It is definitely I would say a 65-35 split, and 65 is card. Up
So
there.
that's something to maybe consider adding to the, I guess, the accounting system.
Okay, yeah, I was just wondering what that amount was that we were hitting on, but that's all I have.
Okay. Page, sorry.
Nope, 6 and 7 are gone.
Page 8, it's called the revolving loan fund, which used to be called community block grant or CDBG money. Almost all of our loans are paid off. I do suspect we will have a couple of loans that we will be generating in 2023. I do think Augustine, or one more bar, will probably seek getting an operating loan. And I guess maybe that's the only one I'm thinking of right now. But I thought about building that in, but I did not. So these are just the loans we have right now. And our liens will be paid off in 2023. And I'm sure Home Away from Home will be paid off because she always pays a bunch ahead. So she's actually probably like almost a year ahead where she should be. And the city's note on the charger will be paid off this year as well.
Yeah, Home Away from Home is scheduled to be paid off in 2024, and she's only got 1,000 left. I mean, it's,
So. Second penny sales tax. So we do split up the sales tax money that we received. 50% of it goes into the general fund, and then 50% of it goes for all these extra obligations. And so that's where a lot of our bonds are paid out of. And then any of those special things that the divisions want to buy during the year. So they're looking at a couple of mowers for the golf course. That's where our golf cart, we buy a new cart every year. And then also the irrigation valves. We replace so many irrigation heads and irrigation parts every year, so.
too bad we don't have a third penny. No, I'm just kidding, I'm kidding.
So this, page 11 is a breakdown of all of our bonds. And it gives you the beginning balance, you know, the January balance, which would be the balance in 2023, and then it gives you the end of year balance, again, that would be in 2023.
And the HRC is quite possibly, isn't that just for the fourplex, or is it also for the, it's also for Beck Drive lots as well, right?
Yeah, it's the development of Beck Drive.
Oh, so it has nothing to do with the HRC fourplex anymore?
No, you guys have your own.
Okay, never mind.
Any questions on the bonds? So, page 12 through 25 is all general fund items. So again, page 12 is just an overview, and then the remaining pages are the more detailed information of all of those numbers. So page 13 is income. Again, the city experienced some growth, and so we have 3% growth, or 2% growth, and then a 3%, which is issued by the state. So it basically attributed to about $18,000 extra that went into general fund from that growth. And that was a question that Linda had asked me about a couple of months ago at one of the council meetings, what would be our new number, and it's about 18,000 over last year. So general fund is your property taxes, special licensing, and then it's that intergovernment or shared revenue that we get, whether it's from the federal level or from the state level or the county level. So that's what those numbers are. And then on page 14 is what we charge for goods and services. And then because the cemetery has their own fund, but I pay for the things out of general fund and then I reimburse general fund at the end of the year, I just do a single line item for cemetery and I have it match. So however much money I need for expenses, I have that as income coming in. Because they have their own money. So you'll see Pleasant Hill Cemetery at $12,445. You'll also see that as an exact expense coming back out.
Would you say our CPI growth was about 18,000?
Between growth and the state level growth and then, or growth and then CPI, it's about 5%. So that means I can ask for about 18,000 more in taxes this year than I have gotten in the past. Now, I will tell you this budget is a lot tighter than I like. So if we have anything significant happen, we're probably gonna have to mix some other items because it is just really, really, really tight. So keep in mind as drama happens in 2023, we're gonna have to really pay close attention on this one. Anything in general fund. Because I really struggled.
I noticed that when we looked at the wages for a few of the people at the golf course community center, it increased. I don't know, somebody needs to be able to answer this, and I'm not saying you guys do, but somebody needs to answer, how many cooks do we need? How many chefs do we need? Do we really need 3 in order to adequately cover? And if so, let's just use the example of Michael Croy being one of those three. A dollar raise would put him over what the other two cooks, the other two chefs are proposed. So again, it's just something to think about, I guess.
I do think you need at least 3. And the reason I say that is to avoid burnout.
That's what I did.
I think if you had 3 and they had the alternating schedule, then at least one person would get a full weekend off. And if they needed to get away, they could, and then the other 2 could, fill in and work. I do think the staggered shifts would help a bunch. And I also think, and I know this is probably scary, but I also think if we did have 3, maybe we could look at being open on a Monday when no other restaurant in town is open. And we possibly might be losing a market that we're not utilizing. So, I know that's scary to say, but it's just an observation.
Well, we don't bring anything in if we're closed.
Correct.
It also doesn't cost us near as much when we're closed. I mean, we're still running an air conditioner, we're still running various things, but,
Well, during the summer months, we have someone there because they are a clubhouse attendant.
well, yeah, that's true.
So from April through October, there is someone there. So, with respect to that zip line, I did not apply for any grant money this year from Keep the Change, but I do want to apply for a grant for that. And I can apply for up to $10,000. I don't know that I would get it, but they like public projects. And so I built in my budget that I'm gonna ask, that I will receive $7,500.
Which is approximately half the cost of the zip line.
Correct. So I did put that in there. Any other questions or thoughts or concerns? Page 17, it says community center. That literally was just to build the building. So next year, that's gonna fall off completely. But I just put it on there this year so that you can see I'm not projecting any more donation money coming in. We still might get some, but, and everything is paid for up there. So I don't have anything outgoing as far as construction costs go anymore.
How about warranty work? We're gonna have that fixed, or we're gonna get stuck with?
You were on the phone with him the other day, weren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a laundry list, and he sounds receptive. He sounds like he's ready to at least go to bat and say, this has gotta be changed, this has gotta be changed, and
He's got the laundry list of stuff that needs to be completed before November. Because November was when we had the walkthrough, and that's when the clock started ticking. So,
that being said, I mean, you can't make a horse drink, right?
I also looked at trying to give an increase to the fire department, and I did have to cut that back. I just did not have the funding to do it. So again, this will give you guys some time to think about what you want to do for the wages in '23. We won't talk about that till the end of December. I also, to gain a little bit more money back too, I used to have it built into the police budget, 20 weeks at 20 hours for part-time people. And I thought 400 hours, when each of them would, maybe take 2 weeks of vacation, and it would be staggered vacation, and we still have Union County to help us. So I did cut the part-time back to 10 weeks at 20 hours. That's 200 hours that they have at their disposal to get a certified officer in. So
I bet they don't even use,
they don't use that at all. But
and they should, but, I mean, it's difficult at best, so.
it
Is
is
there a
now.
lot of time though that they're, and I don't mean this badly, but they're both on duty? Because I can count 6 times in the last 3 weeks, I've seen them both in uniform and both in town.
They do have situations where they do schedule that because it throws people off. But then there are also situations where one's on duty, something happens, the other one has to come on as backup. So,
I just wondered, well, because today they were both at the grocery store, just sitting there, and they were both there. There was nothing going on. The other day, they were at the fire department when I came back to town, and they're both sitting there. I guess it just, I think they're in the uniform, and then the next minute, then we're hearing that they need hours. You know, and I've seen it a few times in the last few weeks. Just was wondering. I don't
certainly
know.
something that we can discuss with them as a committee and everything, just to make sure that
You know,
they're-
maybe there's something they're doing,
Aware.
but I've just seen it quite a bit, and it's made me wonder.
I know, well, I'm right by their house, I mean, I'm right by the thing, so when I leave, I always look to see who's there. And, I know that they're there at the
I
same
saw it
time.
last week,
Yeah.
and it wasn't at the fire it's not at their office, it's,
Out and
I
about.
thought
Out
he was
and about.
sick, wasn't he sick last week?
Yep, Austin was,
they've been, because
2
I've seen
weeks
them.
ago, Austin was out the whole week.
His vehicle was sitting at the shop, or at the.
No, I haven't seen them at the shop, they haven't been at the shop. They've been other places, and it's been 2 of them.
I haven't seen the cars at the shop very often in the last, since he's been sick.
And maybe it's transition time, it could be, about the time I come back to town, maybe they're
Yeah.
transitioning.
Because I think usually one of them's there, like, I'm pretty sure it is, like, just a transition, but I don't know that for sure, so I will.
I'm just curious.
Well, no,
Because they are in uniform, I see it.
Because if you're curious, then a lot of people will be curious,
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
you know,
So we can discuss that
Yeah.
after.
We're thinking budget, we're thinking money.
Yeah.
Page 22 is street, so that's where you will see that it's kind of a significant raise for Lonnie, but again, this year, he's gonna be training and he's gonna be learning. And I also built into his budget, it was really helpful to him to have cash here for those 2 months or whatever, so I did build in $500 at $13 an hour for some assistance. I don't know how much longer Short will keep working with us. So if we don't get Short, you know, we still may need someone. Short usually just does mowing and he's in the park, but it was really helpful to have Cash because he's pretty universal and he went everywhere, especially during all that asphalting. So. And snow is always a crapshoot, I never know. If we get it, if we don't get it. I will say that we had our end of year full meeting with the guards. And at that meeting, we always ask them, how many of you will come back? And we only had 2 guards commit that they're gonna come back. And there was a couple of reasons. Money would be one of them. And the other one is somehow we have to get control of those challenging youth. Because it was too much for the guards this year. So I don't know what that answer is, but, and maybe the challenging youth will outgrow it. They'll be that much a year older.
Well, we went to the fair too, so.
Yeah. That was actually kind of funny. But anyway, so I did build in a little bit of an increase for the guards. Because once Canton Pool's open, we're probably not going to get those Canton rides.
Right.
Oh, Sioux Falls Guards got big bucks this year.
They did. So, we will not have Bailey again, but, because she's probably gonna be looking for a job more in her industry. So, but hopefully between Maddie and Peyton,
She was one of the didn't knows,
Maddie was a didn't know.
correct? It was Noah.
Peyton was a yes.
Noah and Peyton.
Were definite yeses, so.
Mateo, no.
They figured they would be back, those two. The rest of them are,
And maybe they were burned out, you know, I don't.
Yeah, you never know what's gonna happen next year. They may reconsider, but.
And so far, and like I said, so far at this building, we haven't paid any rent, but I did build some money in. I did build $500 a month rent in. So that's where I felt comfortable paying this $2,600 for utilities, because I built it in last year's budget as well. And so we paid $2,600 versus $5,000, still a bonus. And then garage is the city shop. And then liquor store, I did put a little bit more in there for repairs and maintenance, because I figure with new operators, there might be things that come up that haven't come up in the past.
What did we have at the park for summer recreation for $12,000 this year?
The city is a flow-through vessel when the park gets grants.
Oh, okay.
So I get that money in, and then because the city is a tax exempt organization, so if they get a grant from the community foundation, whether it's Sioux Falls Foundation or our local one, foundations like to give it to a tax exempt entity.
Okay.
And so that money is just a in and out.
Okay.
I'm the conduit. So this year, that money was Summer Rec built a new garage, and they got money for that.
Okay.
You have it figured out on the wheel loader. You got that expensive fixing.
I did not figure that in, no, sir. So that was another thing the budget committee was faced with. Lonnie had gone out and gotten quotes on trading our current wheel loader in and on a new one. Because he's looked at wheel loaders, he's looked at them at various numbers of hours, and some of the prices on used are almost the equivalent of new. And so he looked at that, and I first built that in with the budget committee, and they're like, nope, let's not buy new, and if something significant happens, we will fix it. So.
The center pin is bad. That's where it articulates, the
Oh,
center
yeah.
pin. So I'm expecting probably 10 to 15,000. And then you do additional hoses and whatnot, still cheaper than a payment.
Yeah.
A big payment.
A big payment.
So,
And for repairs and maintenance, we build in, I build in anyway, well, I only build in 4,000 there, but we probably sneak it through somewhere else. We had to. Especially if I haven't used it in snow, I can pull some out of there. And I can pull some out of solid waste for that wheel loader, because we do use it in all applications around the city.
I think we better get that looked into if we're gonna fix it. Better
Yeah.
do it before the snow flies.
I know, I said that to Lonnie too. I said, if you're really feeling nervous about it, shouldn't it be gone before we really, really need it? So,
It certainly should be. That center pivot pin is, I mean, if that thing failed, you'd end up in two pieces. It wouldn't be good.
You got the upper and lower, you know.
Would be,
Two of them.
well, yeah, I suppose it would well, it probably would still
It'd still be.
hash out the whole center section. It would, oh, be horrible. Mm.
So, now you have the full numbers, and basically what happens with this budget is I put it in an ordinance form. So tonight you will be approving the first reading of the ordinance, and then in September 19th you'll do the second reading of the ordinance. So.
So as you can see, there is a motion that's needed to approve the first reading of that ordinance.
I motion to approve the first reading of City of Alcester 2023 appropriation ordinance.
I'll second it.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve first reading of the City of Alcester 2023 appropriation ordinance. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There we go. There are a few different resolutions, the first of which is 05.
05 is the annual front footage special assessment at $1 a front foot.
It is not an additional dollar. It's the same dollar that was charged this year and will be charged next year. And as you can see, we would need a motion if we're going to approve it.
I motion to approve the special maintenance fee resolution number 2022-05, a resolution of the City of Alcester to levy an annual special maintenance fee in 2023 for the maintenance of street surfaces within the city pursuant to SDCL 943-138.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve special maintenance fee resolution number 2022-05 as written on the resolution and as written in the agenda. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 2206, this is $5 added. Again, this is not a $15 increase. This is a $5 increase because there's already a $10 surcharge. We're setting it at $15, which means it's a $5 surcharge because the grant people, the money people that are giving us money to do these kinds of things require our rates to be at certain levels. Our wastewater collection fees are too low. So we're increasing it by $5 a month with a surcharge, which then gives us the opportunity to get more help to pay for a new wastewater facility, etc. Infrastructure. Again, it's not a $15 increase, it's a $5 increase to the surcharge. I would need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve 10D, which is wastewater surcharge, resolution number 2022-06. Motion to approve the wastewater surcharge, resolution number 2022-06. The resolution of the City of Alcester to adjust the current rates charged for wastewater discharge into the city sewer system.
I'll second it.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the wastewater surcharge resolution number 2022-06 as written on the resolution sheet and the agenda. Is there any discussion?
Okay, so is this is the same one that we already have, right? That we did for this year?
We have a $10 surcharge, but we were $2.55 short per state requirements.
Oh, okay.
So,
That's why I said, this is not a new $15 surcharge. This is a
Yeah.
$5 increase to the existing
I was just trying
surcharge.
to remember what I thought we increased, we had two,
We did have two last year. One was a 10% on the utility increase on the rate, and then one was the surcharge. The government said we had to put the $10 surcharge in.
yeah.
Now we have to
So
change
this
that.
is a different one, though.
It's
Correct.
just,
Okay.
it's not $15 more, it's
No,
just
no, yeah,
$5
yeah.
more.
Right.
Okay, is there any other discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Every year, the city has to do a water test, and we are testing trihalomethane and haloacetic acid. And we test at the Alcester Baptist Church. And the reason is we test is because of the age of our lines. And we came in, our numbers have never changed in all the years that we've done this test. And we came in well within the guidelines, so.
And it said something about during 2023 or 2022, whatever, the school was actually, there was a different location.
Correct. We always used to test here at the school in the kitchen.
Obviously, this was not in service, so they stopped using that location, and now it's been returned to the school at the new location.
No, it's at the church, Alcester Baptist Church, across the street.
Oh, I thought it said.
I think it was at the church during COVID, wasn't it? Or at the school during COVID? I don't know.
2020 returned to school.
So now we test at the church.
I think, okay, I'm sorry.
That's
I thought-
okay.
I thought that actually was saying that it's been returned to the school again.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
And one other reminder that did not get on there is that the fire department will be flushing hydrants on September 12th. People will probably welcome all that water on their lawns this year. And a sad day for me, but Wanda's last day of service in this capacity with the city is Friday. So.
Woo-hoo. Woo-hoo. Were we gonna talk about I didn't see it on here.
Oh, I'm sorry, my afternoon got crazy. In your books that you get from the state, the Municipalities magazine is the annual convention, and that is in Watertown, and it's in October. If you are interested in attending, which Cindy is interested in attending, let me know, and I will get people signed up to go. And I don't know, you can talk about your experience if you like. When I went to that training.
When I went to the training, I learned a lot. That's why I want to go to this one too, because I learned a lot. And it was helpful.
We have breakout sessions, so you can attend different things throughout the day. Whether it's, and they have it broken out by what department you're in. So if you have an interest in something street related, you could attend the street side of it. And they also have a special session for aldermen dealing with those difficult topics that you guys are faced with.
Good training. Obviously, there's a city council meeting September 19th. This time it will not be here. It will be at the Alcester Public Library at 6 p.m. Homecoming is Friday, September 23rd. And as you can see, the dumpsters are coming, and they will be here September 30th through October 10th of 2022.
Just a thing on the homecoming, I know there's a class reunion that's gonna be at the community center. And I think it could still bring in some So, I don't know, they see the board up and who's given, and I think
Very
it's
good.
just some
No.
hearsay.
It's not bad news.
So, I think if we kind of spread the word, because there's,
1971 and 1972 are doing
Yeah.
a joint class reunion of that.
yeah,
With our next meeting being at the library, I'm looking at our notice of public hearing on the wastewater thing, that's that same night, but here? So that's same night, separate deal?
No,
Separate places?
I will put a notice on our door, or maybe have Abigail stay here and direct anybody that.
Okay, but that'll be at the,
That'll be at the
library as
library.
well. Okay.
Yep, our whole meeting will be at the library.
Okay.
It can also be stated in our minutes that
I thought they just didn't want us to be any part of that meeting anymore. We're gonna hold this meeting in here, those guys will be over there.
No, it's a good idea for you as aldermen to visit the library. If you don't do it just for your own enjoyment as a municipality, to go there, because it is a 50-50, it's a shared school-city library. And we haven't done it since they moved over there. And I think it'd be really good, and Paige will do a wonderful job telling you what's going on, what she's got going on, what her circulation numbers are, you know, if she sees things increasing. Paige really does do an amazing job as a librarian. She's brought in some really good stuff for summer, and her enrollment is quite high.
Okay, number 11, National Philanthropy Day, September 27th, 2022 in Pier. We got a letter from Jerry Joachim that basically, actually it came from this Tracy Party, the executive director of the Horizon Health Foundation. They're quite excited that Alcester was chosen as this philanthropic community of the year, and we get an award for that. And we have a couple of different seats, for lack of a better word. I believe one of them's already been taken. Are you intending to attend?
If two aldermen would want to go, I mean, you guys as aldermen should go. The foundation just felt there should be some representation from the city. There's a member of the foundation that'll be going, and I think that will be Mr. Joachim. I can't remember who else he said. Jamie may go from the bank. I'm not sure who else.
I think the Lions Club is in, somebody
Yes.
from the Lions.
You are correct on that. I forgot that.
So I don't know if anybody can speak for that right now, but if you can't speak for it right now, think about it and at least consider it. I think it would be great to have somebody there.
And I think it'll just be a day trip, because this is a new meeting, so you leave in the morning, attend the event, and then come back home, so.
Kind of a long drive, but
Would you be interested in?
I'd love to, but I don't think I can go.
I know I can't do
I would go in a heartbeat if I could effectively say I can guarantee I'll be there, yes.
I probably could go, if nobody else can, you know.
Well, it's theoretically possible that two people are gonna go, so you can speak for one seat right now, and then if any of you others want to.
I think they got a table, the way I was explained. Horizon,
Yeah,
somebody
I think
did
so
get a
too.
table.
Yeah.
And if you don't get to sit at that table, there is another organization that would provide some seats for us to sit at as well.
Hmm.
So, at least that was the last thing I heard from Mr. Joyce.
Especially considering that we got the award.
Yes, I definitely think there should be someone from the community to receive it.
Yeah. So Lucas, if you can effectively say you
Yep.
probably will go,
Yep.
we'll mark that down. That's a great thing. And if any of you others are interested or have the ability, let us know ASAP and we'll,
I can.
I think it would be an amazing event. I'm sure
oh, I
it would
think
be
it'd be
a-
outstanding.
a large
I mean, so that's that. Number 12 is the Fair Board update, and I don't know what kind of update we have from the Fair Board.
Well, I didn't get to attend our final meeting, and I don't know, Darla.
It wasn't a real long meeting. The fair was down this year, attendance was down. In fact, the comment was made, they don't know if we could have a rodeo again.
Really?
So, yep, we just didn't bring in enough revenue to pay for it. It will be a talk. One thing they did say is that if we stay, which kind of sounded like the consensus of Fair Board is, they know they're gonna have to look at the water issue, but they want more than one bid. They don't want, they feel Waterman's the most expensive in the area. So they would like a couple other bids. They did say that. It will be the same weekend next year.
Oh, so that, you guys set the date.
It's that first weekend in August.
Okay.
It's not in July anymore.
So, oh, 4th, 5th, and
Yeah.
Third,
Similar-
fourth, and-
Similar to this year.
Third, fourth, and fifth.
Fourth, fifth, yeah.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
I don't know, I guess it wasn't real long, but that was just some of the things they talked about. I mean, the attendance was, and the Lions Club also talked to me and said that their revenue was down quite a bit.
I think the one day of rain really hurt us.
And then it was so goddamn hot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, people weren't gonna kind of rain, and then it was hot.
And our supper was way down.
Yeah. So we'll see what next year brings, I guess. But they are definitely not in favor of it. And even Kevin said, I just don't, the way costs are, there is no way we'd have a fair. You know, you couldn't do it next year. So. Fair Board pretty much all said no. But they're waiting for the, the appraisal, so.
Yeah. We've done the, used to be item 13. You can move over to item 14, city employees. There are a couple of spots there that allow us to hire city employees if we so desire.
So I will make a motion to increase Sam and Connor's pay $1 an hour at this time.
Plus $1 per hour.
Yeah.
And do you want that effective retro back to,
So it'd be what, August?
August 18th.
So it wouldn't be real bad.
No.
Yeah, I would say make it retro to the time that they took over.
okay?
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded to increase Sam and Connor's hourly rate by $1, retroactive to, whoops. Write that, retro to August 18, 22. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Anything else?
motion to adjourn the council.
I'll second.
All right, let's just put that down. Kyle. And Cindy.
Unless you wanted to discuss anymore.
Motion's been made and seconded to adjourn the council. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Council is adjourned at 9:33 PM.
One more final thing off your list.
It was supposed to be last.